Easter is just around the corner, and I have several last-minute DIY ideas that are very affordable and quick and easy to put together. You can also leave these out well into summer, maybe even until the 4th of July. Let's get started with today's projects. They had some really cute metal decor at Dollar Tree this year. I picked up this bunny and I also picked up a chick. And I want to show you guys two different ways that you can change up the look of these and make them fit your decor, your style, whatever that you want to do with these. You can do the same technique that I'm going to show you guys today. So for the bunny, I just wanted to paint all of this with this truffle color from Waverly Chalk Paint. I did want to have a dark color in the background for this first technique that I am going to be showing you guys. I know at this point it looks just like a chocolate bunny, but I promise there is a method to my madness, and I really wanted to try this particular technique because I have never done this on metal before. So I hope that my vision translates to the actual project here. So stick with me and let's see how this turns out. And I just used my heat gun to help me dry that paint. I did just one coat of this truffle color paint and did just some touch-ups. I didn't care if some of that white color showed through. That just adds to the character of the finished decor piece. And I am using the Elmer's school glue, and I just put down a liberal amount of that, and I did work in sections and just used a paintbrush and just smooth that out. I tried to get this in as even a layer as I could. I wanted to not have any big globs of that glue that just affects your finished look when you do the paint for your crackle effect. That's what we are going to be doing. You guys probably already guessed that at this point. And I did go ahead and cover my entire bunny first with that Elmer's school glue, and then I am going back in with my plaster colored chalk paint from Waverly, and I am trying to just spread that fairly liberally and not go over the same area twice. That does just get some streaks in your paint, but I did cover everything at the same time before I applied heat to get my crackle. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you are enjoying these projects so far. If you are, please give this video a thumbs up and click that hype button. If you are new here, welcome to my small little corner of YouTube. I'm Alicia, and I would love to know where you are watching from, so let me know in the comments, and I'm so happy that you are here today. Now let's get back to our featured projects. And this is real time here. I wanted to show you guys how fast that crackle will start appearing on whatever surface that you are working on. And I just used my heat gun, and I used the lowest setting. You could also use a hair dryer if you don't happen to have one of these on hand. And for this side, I let my paint and glue sit for about 3 minutes or so before I applied heat. Sometimes if you let this sit for a little while, that will change the look of the crackle that you get. You will have a finer crack once you apply that heat. So I wanted to try that out on this side, and then I do it a little bit differently on that second side. That's the plus to having a double-sided piece that you are working on like this. You have another chance to try your technique and just see which way works best for you and which way that you like the best. And for the second side of my bunny, I did not let that paint and glue set up. As soon as I applied the last part of my paint, I went ahead and added my heat or heated this up to get my crackle. And here you can see the difference in those two sides. It's not terribly noticeable, but my second side, I did get some bigger cracks in that just because I did not let that paint and that glue set up. So again, you can do whichever way that you prefer, whether you want the smaller cracks or the larger in your paint. And I did love the detail that was on these metal bunnies. They just had this floral detail, and I wanted to make that stand out and highlight that some. So I just used my antique gold rub and buff and just an old dishcloth, and I just lightly buffed that over all of those raised areas of that design. And I did go around the edges just a little bit too, just to make sure that everything would blend in nicely. And that is it for the first technique that I wanted to show you guys. I really like this one. I love that crackle effect and I love that gold rub and buff. I think this one has a very high-end but vintage feel to this one. Now, on to the second method that I wanted to show you guys. This is the little chick that I found, and of course I just removed that bow and any of that hot glue that was dried just so I could get this ready to paint. And I did want to mention that these all have a lot of glitter on them. I tried to sand that off, it just didn't work for me, so I just painted over all of that, and it also adds to some of the texture that you get once your project is finished. So for this one, I did one coat of some white chalk paint, and this is the Deco Art brand. I believe it's the one that you can find at Hobby Lobby. And I also found some of these really pretty floral napkins in the clearance section at Hobby Lobby. Be sure that you guys check there. I have found napkins, stencils, paint, all kinds of different things that are extremely cheap and affordable. And of course, when you are working with napkins, you want to remove any of those extra plies. I just used a piece of washi tape to help me do that with this one. And I didn't want to cut this napkin with scissors. I wanted more of a natural edge, I guess you would say, with this. So I just dipped a small paintbrush into some water, and then I just tore my napkin that way. And I did just tear this down into those actual sections that the folds had created. I just went over those fold lines with that water and got these down to size. And I also went around that text that's printed on the bottom of your napkins just to remove that, because of course I don't want that on my finished decor piece. And I just laid these out first. I was trying to decide where I wanted all of my florals to be, and I really thought they would look pretty on kind of the front side of my chick and also the tail. So I just applied a thin layer of Mod Podge all over the surface of my little chick. And you do want to try to get this as even as you can and not have any areas that you have a lot of that Mod Podge. It will just make your napkin too wet and it will tear that. So you don't want that to happen. Just smooth this out as best as you can while you are doing this technique. And I love doing decoupage for decor pieces like this. It is just a super easy and simple way that you can completely change the look of something. So I just carefully started laying down those pieces of napkin that I had cut out. Just press that a little bit with my finger first just to get that down in some areas. Then I go directly back over that before that Mod Podge dries with just the extra Mod Podge that I had on my brush, and just make sure I apply that napkin to all of the areas of my chick. And in those spots where it didn't want to adhere very well, I just took my scissors and cut some slits in there, and that made it just a little bit easier to get my napkin applied to this metal form. And I decided I wanted to take off just a little bit more of that final piece of napkin. I didn't want to have a lot of overlap. That would just change the look of this. So I just removed that area that I wanted to and did the same thing as I did before and just made sure that I pressed firmly in that area where a little bit of this overlapped onto that other part of the napkin that I had already applied. And I did go around the wing portion a little bit more with that brush just to make sure that I had that applied well in that area. And to remove any of the excess of my napkin, I just used a jumbo fingernail file and went around all of the edges of my chick shape, put any extra Mod Podge that I needed to just to make sure everything was applied well and all of my shape was covered with my napkin. And once that first layer was completely dry, I do apply just a second layer of Mod Podge. That just seals everything in, and you make sure that all of your edges are down where they need to be and you don't have any of your napkin pull up from your shape. And of course, I did the same thing for the other side of my chick. And I am not a huge fan of just bright white decor, cars, clothes, anything like that. I like a lot of color in my life, you guys. But this one, I wanted to make it look a little bit more vintage, of course. So I used a couple of colors of my Distress ink. I used the Vintage Photo and the Walnut, I believe is what these two were. And just one of those little daubers. And again, I wanted to highlight that floral detail, but for this one, I do go over the entire surface with both of those Distress ink colors. And that is it for my chick. Let me know what you guys think about this one. I love all of the florals on here. I think this one will be perfect to leave out even after Easter. I am a fan of leaving out bunnies, chicks, and other Easter decor all throughout the spring. Now that you've seen two different ways to transform the look of these metal decor pieces, I would love to know which one is your favorite. Would you pick number 1 or number 2? Let me know in the comments. I have a couple of pieces of these wooden slats that you can find at Dollar Tree. I think these are about 15 inches in length. At least that's pretty close to what I get when I measure them out. They may be closer to 15.5, but just to let you know what size I am working with. And I actually want to use these and make a cross with them, but this one is a little bit too long for me, so I want to just take this down a little bit and not have either side too long. So I want to just measure this out and see about how far that is from this centerpiece. So it is about 4.5 inches on that side. So I want to measure out 4.5 inches on this side. And if I can get my Sharpie open, I will just mark where I need to cut this, and I will measure this again and just make sure I have everything right. And then I'm just going to use my miter box to cut down this one side here. Now that I have that one piece cut down, it wound up being around 11 inches total. I'm going to stain both of these and also this oval plaque from Dollar Tree as well. I'm going to stain all of these pieces with my antique wax from Waverly. Now that all of my pieces are dry, it is time to start assembling. So I just placed my shorter piece kind of close to the top of my base piece of wood, and I do want to get this centered, so I use my ruler just to measure either side of this shorter piece just to make sure that I have the same overhang on both sides. And again, this is about 4.5 inches on either side. And I just take a fine tip Sharpie and just mark along the top and the bottom of that just so I know where I want to place this back down, because I did want to just slide this down so I could try to keep that in the position that I had it. And I just used a combination of this wood glue, super glue that you can find at Dollar Tree, and some hot glue. And I tried to work quickly with this. I wanted to make sure that I had that centered. And you do have just a couple of seconds, so you have a little bit of wiggle room so you can get this put in the right place. And just put my ruler back on there just to make sure that I had that centered before I pressed that down firmly. And then I started adding my florals. I found all of these at Dollar Tree. That first one is a lilies bush, some petunias, greenery bush, and some calla lilies. I wanted to stick with neutral colors for this as much as possible. That's why I just picked this kind of pale pink peachy color for the calla lilies, just to give me a little pop of that pale pink color. And I just took my wire cutters and cut these down into pieces to work with. I do wind up cutting those down even smaller just in a little bit. But first I started laying all of these out and doing a dry fit with these. I do like working with florals more now than I used to. I'm a little bit more confident in my skills with placement of florals and things like that. But the more you practice with these, the better that you get. So I just laid all of these down where I thought they would look the best. Just played around with that placement. And you guys, of course, when you recreate this, you can use whatever florals that you want to that would match your decor. I thought all of these were really pretty. So I laid all of those down, and I do decide to use some hot glue to do this. You can, of course, kind of create a swag of sorts if you want to, and tie that with some jute, a pipe cleaner, or some floral wire, something like that, if you would rather put all of these together in one bundle. And then you could just glue that bundle to your cross. But for me, I opted to just do the hot glue for this. That was just the easiest way for me to get my florals applied to my cross. So I just started laying all of those down. And I cut off those longer pieces of those stems before I glued everything. And I did use my little silicone makeup brush as I was putting down all of these florals, because these are really thin, so you will burn your fingers with that hot glue. So I just had that close by and pressed that down until all of my florals were stuck where I wanted them. And I wanted to leave a lot of that cross showing because, of course, that is the focal point, but I also wanted my florals to be nice and full. And I found some little scrap pieces of this little white floral. I'm not exactly sure what this one is called. It just reminded me of baby's breath. And I wanted something smaller just to tuck in here and there on my floral piece. So I just cut that down into smaller pieces and added some hot glue on the end of those stems and just tuck those in between some of those bigger flowers and that greenery. Now, to get this on my base, I just put that in the center as best as I could. I did not measure this. You guys can do that if you would like to. and I just tried to hold that in place, and I grabbed my fine tip Sharpie, and I know it's hard for you guys to see what I'm doing right here, but I am just marking the sides of that piece and also the front, just so I know where to put this back down. And again, I'm using that combination of wood glue, super glue, and some hot glue. I tried to put this down as soon as I had my little dots of hot glue there, because I wanted this to have that quick hold, because I did not want to have to hold this for a long time while that wood glue super glue set up. And I did add just a little bit extra hot glue on the back just for some extra hold, and that is it for this one. I think this one is just very elegant and so pretty, and will be the perfect focal point for all of my Easter decor this year. I picked up a package of these plastic Easter eggs from the Dollar General, and they were only $1, so be sure that you guys keep an eye out there for different items. We forget about that sometimes, I think, and you can still find a lot of things for $1. So I am going to be spray painting these with this sweet almond color. This is a gloss spray paint. I didn't have any matte on hand, so I'm just trying to work through my stash and use what I already have and not spend a lot of extra money right now, because crafting can get really expensive really quickly. So use what you already have and you can create some beautiful decor. And I wanted to show you guys an easy way that you can spray paint these eggs. I just use these bamboo skewers and put them into a disc of styrofoam and put that styrofoam on just this cake turntable. This was when I decorated cakes, and I have turned it into a crafting tool. So I only had to do one coat on these eggs just to get the coverage that I wanted. Removed them from those skewers, and I just pulled out several different rub-on transfers that I had in my stash. This Farmhouse one came from Amazon, and that one that you see on the left there, it has a gold finish. I got that at Dollar Tree a few years ago. So I just cut down the words that I wanted to use for this project. I did blessed, love, faith, hope, and joy for my eggs. One of these I just left plain. And you guys, learn from my mistakes here. I did not let these dry, this first one anyway. I didn't let these dry long enough. So you'll see what happens here in just a minute after I apply this rub-on transfer. And I just applied that to my egg, just rubbed it down firmly with my finger. I cut some little slits in that transfer sheet just to try to get this to lay down flat. It's hard to do that sometimes when you have a cylinder or an oval shape like this that you're applying either a rub-on transfer or a vinyl decal or something like that too. But if you cut slits, it just helps you get that down a little bit better. And I used that Cricut burnishing tool and started pulling that up, and yes, it pulled up some of my spray paint. I should have left the audio in for this clip because I was really aggravated at this point. But that's what you get for not being patient when you are crafting and trying to rush the process. So to fix that, I just took some of my plaster colored chalk paint and a tiny little detail brush and just touched that up with some of that paint. And then I just add a little bit of that paint here and there all across my egg, and also I do that across the blessed word as well, just to try to blend that in a little bit better and that area that I messed up not stand out so much. But I just repeat those steps with all the rest of my eggs and the rub-on transfers, and I think these look very farmhouse, so these would look great just left out in your decor year-round until fall, I think. That is it for this one. This one was really quick. The longest part of this project was I'm trying to be patient and wait for that spray paint to dry long enough. But these are really fun just to tuck in here and there with all of my other decor. That wraps up today's video. I hope you guys are feeling inspired and try a couple of these last minute Easter project ideas. Let me know which one of these is your favorite. Please like, share, and hype today's video. Also, I would love for you to subscribe if you haven't done so already. And also be sure that you check out my Facebook and Instagram pages as well. Have a blessed day, and I will see you in the next one.